Back in 2017, we originally lived in Florida and we wanted to make a fresh start, and I already had a sister that lived in Elmira, New York. We just up and moved. We didn't even have a place to live at that point. We just wanted a fresh start. So once we made it to Elmira, my sister introduced us to this very well-known landlord. We went to his office to talk to him and to see if he had anything available as soon as possible. And he said the only thing he had at this very moment was the apartment next door to his office. He said that the downstairs was a beauty parlor, but the upstairs was an apartment, but they're two separate duplexes. When we walked over to the house to view it, the first thing I noticed was the historical plaque that I read about. It was built in the 1830s. And the landlord decided to tell us that is where Mark Twain used the grocery stop, because he had family in Elmira, New York, and he also was buried in Elmira, New York. It used to be a grocery store back in the late 1800s. As we're touring the house, I just had this gut-wrench feeling, uncomfortable, and I thought at first it was first apartment time jitters because we've never had an apartment. I'm looking at all the rooms. In the rooms, they have the dressers basically built into the wall that's original with the house, and the carpets are original in the house. Everything was pretty much still the same, just besides him remodeling the kitchen a little bit. In the living room, it was different because there was a tiny little, it could have been a closet attached to it. I ended up turning that into my kids' playroom. We gave him the money, took the apartment, started setting up that very day that he gave us the keys. Within the first couple of days of unpacking and going over everything, we set up my 3-year-old daughter's bedroom, and she has a camera that watches her above the bed. She was scared to sleep in her room for the first time, but we got her comfortable with a bunch of lights and everything. My daughter was also 3 months at the time, my other one. We didn't have the pieces to her crib, so unfortunately we couldn't set up her room yet. My daughter's closet was attached to the corner of my other daughter's closet. And we're starting unpacking, we're taking care of everything. And I want to say after the first couple of days, I noticed I started hearing my name being called.
Maegan.
And it was in the voice of my husband. I'm searching the house because I'm like, it's early in the morning and they're all sleeping in the living room. Nobody's awake. I started noticing in their playroom here and there that toys would start moving. I just thought that it was my imagination. I'm just scared because it's my first apartment. After we finally got my daughter's crib together and we put her in the bed the first night, I want to say it was like 3:15, 3:30 in the morning, I hear a blood-curdling scream. When I run in there to go check on her, it looked like she was stuck in her crib. It looked like somebody was trying to pull her out. She was stuck up to her thighs at an awkward angle, and she was screaming. So when I picked her up to feed her, at the time I breastfed her, so I sat in the rocking chair that was in the corner of the bedroom, and I just had this uneasy, gut-wrenching feeling. I took her out of that room, and I didn't put her back in the room. I was just terrified. And I thought, again, it was my nerves, first-time apartment. Then I want to say a couple of nights later, my 3-year-old was telling me that she was hearing things in her room, and as moms, I just tell her, honey, there's nothing to be scared of. It's our first apartment. Maybe it's one of your toys or stuffed animals. And then the next night, I wake up. It was about 3:40 in the morning. I had to feed my youngest daughter, and I had the urge to look at my daughter's camera in her bedroom. And the moment I looked at her camera, I can see her being pulled out by her toes and placed onto the floor. I immediately wake up my husband, give him our youngest daughter, and I run in the room and I grab her and I take her back into our bedroom. I didn't think I just at that point ignored it because I was like, okay, maybe it was my imagination. Maybe I'm going crazy. She was basically pulled out of her bed and placed, it looked like she was placed gently onto the floor. And she was still awake, like sleeping by the moment I even went in the room to grab her. A few days later, my sister's mother-in-law came to visit, and she's always cleansed houses, and she believed in holy water. She told me that she was a medium, so all I said to her was, hey, can you come and look at my house? There's just something that makes me feel uncomfortable. I said, and it could be first time having an apartment. She's walking through the apartment, and the entire time she's just shaking her head. She stops in the door frame of my youngest, the 3-month-old, points right behind the rocking chair, where I felt uncomfortable days prior, and she said, it's behind the rocking chair. She described it as a very tall, dark figure with red eyes and sharp teeth. It was looking at her at that very moment. Then my niece runs over, and she's about 4 years old, and she runs into her grandma's arms, and then she looks behind the rocking chair, and she starts hysterically crying and screaming, saying, what is that? I can't, she has something in front of it. It's small, it looks like a kid, and it's telling me to get into its stomach, and she hysterically ran out of the house. Then she's walking around the house, and she's telling us that there is a very dark and heavy spirit here, and that she would like to perform a cleansing. So she got sage and she got holy water. The next day she came back, and I went with her, and at that point we stopped staying at the house because it was just beyond creepy. As she's walking around the house with me, saging it, I'm grabbing the kids' clothes and what we need for them to bring to my sister's house. She screams for me to come into the living room that has the small room attached to it, and she asks me, about their toys and stuff, because this one toy was moved. And then all of a sudden, as she's talking to me about my daughter's toys, my daughter's dump truck, which is a heavy metal yellow dump truck, flew out of the small room with her and I standing right there and almost hit us. She also had an activity center. It's like a cube box, and it's like a colorful piano, but the batteries died. It wasn't working, and all of a sudden the red piano key started blinking, and it kept going faster and faster. She said that whatever was in the house was not happy with our presence, and that we need to leave now. That night, we sat my 3-year-old down, and I asked her, honey, do you remember when mommy found you on the floor? She said, yes, mommy. I says, did you slip onto the floor? What happened? And she explained to me that the man put her on the floor, and that he was a soldier, and he was nice during the day, but he was mean at night because the guards used to lock him in her closet at night. In her closet, there is a built-in seat, and there is a lock, an old-fashioned lock on the outside. That is original with the house. She proceeds to tell me that during the day, the soldier usually will play toys with her and talk with her, but at nighttime, he is a very scary man. He has red eyes and sharp teeth, and she says that he gets taller. She said that she wasn't scared because when he tries to wake her up at nighttime, she's just too tired to play with him. At that moment, I went to my landlord next door, and I explained to him the situation. I did tell him, I was like, you may not be a believer, but this is what is going on. He said that at that point he was going to try to help us find another apartment, but in the meantime we had to basically hunker down, and that he's never heard of anything happening in that house, that this is the first time he's ever heard of anything. The next day we go back to the apartment, and my husband and I are collecting the kids' more clothes, the food, and I'm in my daughter's room with the creepy closet. All of a sudden, I hear my husband's phone ring, and it was my sister's mother-in-law telling him to please find Megan and get her out of the house. He was confused, and he walks into my daughter's room and sees me on the floor holding my chest, and I told him I couldn't breathe. The moment that he got me out of the house, I felt like a weight was off my shoulders, and I was able to breathe, and my chest didn't feel tight. My sister-in-law ended up coming from Florida to come and visit us with her boyfriend, and he thought that it would be a wonderful idea to bring a Ouija board into the house, which I am honestly totally against. So I made sure that when he wanted to mess with the Ouija board, I didn't want to be a part of it. We were having a picnic that day for my niece's birthday, so we ended up, my husband, his sister, and her boyfriend ended up messing with the Ouija board in the dining room of the house, which is right across from my daughter's bedroom with the built-in closet. I forgot that an important thing, one of my daughter's medications at the house, and as I go to the house hoping that they are done messing with this Ouija board, I'm going up the stairs and I can see the Ouija boards moving, and they're trying to tell me that it is a German soldier and that he wrote out some words for them. As they're trying to talk to me, tell me this, all of a sudden my daughter's closet starts opening up. I can see the very tall, dark figure with red eyes and sharp teeth standing in the doorway, and I told them that I'm getting the hell out of there, and basically that it was not a soldier that they were speaking to. And after that, even moving out of the house, I did not step foot back into it. I made my husband honestly move everything out once we found an apartment, and even then we were to the point where we were so spooked we just moved back to Florida, because everywhere we moved up there, unfortunately, we had small things, but the demonic spirit that we encountered, I couldn't get out of my head. And it's to the point where my daughter still till this day, when she moved back to Florida, she was still drawing it, and she still remembers it, and still she calls it that it was her friend, that he was nice to me, mommy, and he was just only mean at nighttime because of the soldiers. Till this day, and she's 9 years old, she remembers her creepy friends. I believe it was a demonic creature. But my thing is how it would transform during the day to a soldier, but then at nighttime, it was this tall, dark figure that fed on my children, to where it was pulling them out of their crib and putting them onto the floor. Once I met with a paranormal investigator back in January, and I was speaking to him about it, he stated that a demonic presence cannot transform like that. It can't be nice during the day and mean at night, that there was possibly few spirits in the house, and the soldier is basically trying to protect my daughter. Only at that house. Unfortunately, like the landlord said, that we are the first people that has ever said anything about that house, and he's never heard of it being haunted, but he didn't disagree with us because he said the house was built in the 1830s. It's a historical landmark, is the way he described it. Having the picture, we did take Polaroid pictures, and the only thing that we caught on the camera was behind the rocking chair. It looks like it's either two black eyes turning around looking at us, or it was two black orbs, and he stated that there was other orbs in my picture, but other than that, we haven't experienced the creepiness. My daughter does still experience things here in Florida where she'll tell me that she sees things and hear things, but it's never been the tall, dark creature with the red eyes and sharp teeth. A lot of my close friends and family that know me know that I've always experienced the paranormal, to where nothing has ever fazed me. I've even dealt with other slight demonic presences. When I tell them that this was the absolute worst and I was terrified, and normally I don't get terrified, as weird as that sounds, because I'm so used to it, they believe me, and it's worse when they hear it coming from my daughter's mouth, because they say it's gut-wrenching, and that they're surprised we even lasted 2 weeks. For some reason, it was only my children. So, except I think to the point where I took our children out of the house, then that's when I felt it, whether I believe it was attacking me at that point, because when I was in my daughter's room on the floor getting her clothes, and she was at my sister's house, when we removed her from that situation, I felt like somebody was sitting on my chest and I couldn't breathe. At that point, that was the one scary experience I had with it, besides like the things moving in the house, the toys, the activity center blinking. That was the one time that I felt like it attacked me. And it was because I removed the children. My mom, unfortunately, she was really big into Ouija boards and witchcraft. She, unfortunately, she passed away a few years ago, but from my understanding, she would always mess with the Ouija boards, and she would always tell us to never touch them, because then she burned her Ouija board because she was so terrified of it. And growing up, just seeing my friends mess with them and the demonics of how you're basically opening up a portal in my eyes, it terrifies me. I didn't even like seeing it or feeling it near me. It just gives me the creeps. I feel like with the demonic spirits, in my opinion, interacting only pisses them off more, or even at that point makes them stronger, because that was the only time that I saw the demon, is when they were messing with the Ouija board. The crazy thing is, that's why my daughter was never scared, because of the soldier. She, even being 9 years old today, she can tell you where he would play with her at. She remembers her room, she remembers the closet, she remembers the tall dark figure. And for some reason, it doesn't scare her. Like, it honestly, it would creep anybody out, but it doesn't scare her at all. A lot of people don't listen to kids. Growing up, when I would tell my grandmother all the things that I've seen, like my great-grandfather sitting at the end of my bed, and I've never even seen the man, she would always dismiss it and never listen to me. But now that I'm older and my kids are telling me that they're seeing things and hearing things, I was like, all right, I believe you. I get it. And the weirdest thing is, in our family, all of the girls are gifted. So my niece, my sisters, my daughters, we've all been able to experience the paranormal in ways that I can't even describe. Me and my little sister experienced a demonic once before, unfortunately, and it was to the point where I told my adoptive parents that the family because I told them I kept hearing voices and waking up with kids' fingerprints all over, like their bloody marks on me. I told them that they were murdered, and there was a husband, wife, and 2 children in the early 1900s, and I described them who the guy was. I described to them the tool that he used to kill them, and I could hear it going through like dirt and gravel. He tells me not to tell anybody, then I started waking up like I'm actually watching me above my body and something is holding me down. And I can't move my body, I can't do anything, and I see this dark figure over my body. I woke up the next morning with bruises all over my arms, and it happened to my little sister as well. When we talked to people about it, nobody wanted to hear it, except somebody said, they're like, that sounds demonic. If it could hurt you, and we've been pushed down the stairs, and we've woken up. I had friends that stopped sleeping over because they would all say that there was a dark figure always standing at the end of my bed, and they would all wake up the next morning with 3 scratch marks on their legs. I stopped having sleepovers because nobody wanted to come over. Like I explained to them, I said, there's children, they're 5 and 6 years old, it's a boy and a girl. I told them that they like to play at nighttime, and believe it or not, other family members in the house started hearing giggling and things moving. They were waking up with like a kid grabbed their finger and put their nails into it. They were waking up with indents, bloody indents. And then there are several times where I would be sleeping, and it's like an outer body experience where I could see myself next to my body, and I see a dark figure either holding me down or in the corner of my bedroom. That was when I was 15 or 16 years old, and the fact that I still, like in the house I live at now, we're still experiencing strange things happening. My daughter says too, she's a mommy, there's a ghost in the house. I guess to us it's a normal thing, but demonic wise, I've only experienced it twice, and they've only experienced it one time. When we went to St. Augustine in January and we were talking to the paranormal investigator, he said, you know that they are actually offended when you call them demons. I said, but what else would we use them? He was like, they're like a malevolent. He's like, calling them demon is basically a slander to them. He's like, you piss them off more by saying that. And I was like, so that's the only way I can describe them. When we told him that same story that we just told you, he said, no doubt. That was a very dark spirit. He's like, I don't say demon. But I will say demon for this one special occasion. We don't know everything, unfortunately. And even when we feel like we do know everything, we don't. We definitely don't. And I even took my mother-in-law, who is a non-believer, and made her believe, because with her granddaughter telling her things, I would have never thought that anything like this would ever happen. We went around the house late at night with a Polaroid camera because I've heard that's one of the best ways to get things on camera, just like your phone. And we walked in my 3-year-old's bedroom and we didn't pick anything up. But when we walked into my 3-month-old daughter's bedroom, it was exactly where I kept telling them I felt uncomfortable. It was behind the rocking chair. And that was the only place that we were able to take the picture. And we even took it another time to try to recreate it, like seconds, like, oh, no, not seconds, like minutes after that, and we couldn't. And when I mentioned it to the paranormal investigator, I was like, well, maybe it was the flash. He said, no flash is going to do that. He said, you have either 2 black eyes in your thing or you have 2 black orbs. I can find the Polaroid picture and I'll just send it to you. See, I want to see your response because when I've showed other people, all of them have said, what the hell is that? Nobody could ever explain. And like I said, the moment I showed a paranormal investigator, he was creeped out because he's like, I've never seen this ever. When we told him the rest of the story, he basically said that it was a good thing we got out of that house because who knows what would have happened if we stayed there. That he, in all his years of doing this, he's never seen black orbs. He's never seen black eyes. He was like, I've seen things in pictures and stuff. Because I've even seen these creepy witch pictures. Like he said, one of them looked like it was like an old witch hanging over a cemetery stone. And he showed us. Like I said, I've always experienced paranormal. I've only experienced demonic once before, but it tops it. And unfortunately, it sticks with us and it sticks with my daughter. Now, thankfully, my 3-month-old was too little at the time. Now it sucks that as she was being pulled out of her crib, her poor legs were, like they were stuck. And she was really, I want to say the next day she had a small bruises. But that's where it's something demonic because at that point now it's harming your children.